All right, our email template is looking pretty good now. This is going to be the last video in this series, and there are just a few little things that I wanted to go over with you in a little more detail. Certainly, you can make email templates with much more complex designs than this one. This is very simple, but the steps you need to take to actually get a handle on things are going to be pretty much the same. You should always start with your design settings and make adjustments to your typography styles and your basic page setup here. Your basic page width is going to be set into template code, which is going to be right here. Our main template has a width of 600 pixels. That's what we've been using. So you need to start there. From there, you can start working with content. We know that with images, we need to take care of how we size our images. We need to make sure that they're sized correctly for Outlook so that they don't break in Outlook. Finally, if we have good control over our typography, we can finally add web fonts, and I showed you how to do that in the last video. So the process will be the same for any template that you work on. What I did here was I saved two files from this template, which I'll show you. So here, this is our template HTML, and it has all of the code changes that we made up in here, and we know that the template has these placeholder divs that actually grab our content. So that's what you see in the template. Now you can't just copy this into a new blank Marketing Cloud template. It won't work. You have to go through the steps of setting things in your design settings and let Marketing Cloud understand what all of your regions are and what content is going to go in those regions. So if you simply just drop this into a new blank template, this won't work. But what you can do is you can take the completed HTML email message, which is this here, and this has all of the content in it. You can take this and you can drop it into what they call a paste HTML email. So let me show you how that's done. I'm going to copy this to my clipboard. I'm going to put this away. And let's close this. And I'm going to create new email message. And let's just give this a simple name. And we'll save it in our folder here. And I'm going to select HTML as the type of email that I'm going to use. Okay, and then I'm going to save that. And this will open up a blank HTML window. And then I can simply paste what I copied before right in here, and we'll see the whole thing pop into view. Now we can go ahead and save this and send a test to ourselves, and we can see exactly how this particular template works. What we can't do, though, is we can't go back in and edit the text or the images with the WYSIWYG editors that are built into Marketing Cloud. We can only work on it here in the HTML view. So this can be useful if you're good with HTML. You can make very quick, easy changes to the CSS just to sort of try out different things. You can make quick, easy changes to the HTML as well. But this isn't the kind of template that you can hand over to a content editor to be used. This is only something for developers to use. So one change that we could try making right away here is we could try changing the page width. So we've been using a page width of 600 pixels, which is very conservative. Let's bump this up to 750 and see what happens. So the page just changed width but now we need to go back in and change our image sizes and so on. But I just wanted to show you this briefly so that you understand how to create a paste from HTML email message in Marketing Cloud. So now let's jump back to a real template to see what we need to do to change image sizes and so on. Okay, here we are with a new email message that I made from a copy of the template, and in that template I changed the page width to 750 pixels. And so here I also enlarged the size of this image, and I enlarged the size of these images as well. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that we want this whole thing to scale down in size if we're on a tablet. And a tablet such as an iPad may not display 750 pixels wide. It may display slightly less than that, depending on the version of iPad that you're using. So one thing that we need to do is change the media query breakpoint for our in-between size screen sizes. So here I've changed this to 750 so that it matches our new page width of 750 here. And that is so we can reduce the size of our window, and when the window size reaches 750, the whole thing should start to scale, which it does. Okay, so that's good. So a typical iPad may display something that's this wide. Now, for our image block, we need to make sure that scale to fit is checked on. If we leave this checked off, that means that this image stays locked to the larger size. And so now we get a horizontal scroll bar here, and this image size will actually push open the table. Even though we've set the table to be larger, it won't be responsive the way we expect. So we need to make sure that scale to fit is checked on, and we need to make sure that that is also the same with these images down here. So I've increased the size of those images as well, and scale to fit is checked on those images as well. So now when we go to send a test email of this, we can take a look at it, and we should see a fully responsive email. So let's see what this looks like. This is Apple Mail, and it looks perfect. And if I size this down, it scales down nice and smooth. When we reach the iPhone size, we'll see the layout change, and the layout changes there. So those tables are responsive, and there they pop back in again. So this works fine in Apple Mail, and this new larger sized email will also work fine in many other email clients, but things are a little bit different on PCs. And to actually understand what happens, I need to show you on a PC. So I took some pictures of this so that you can see what happens. This is a new PC laptop that we bought at Best Buy, and it has a touch screen. This is the kind of computer that most people are buying these days. It's a laptop computer with Windows 10, and it has a touch screen. Windows 10 is designed to support touch screens. So they've made all of the menus extra big. And you can see that what happens here is that slightly more than half the screen size is taken up by the menus, and slightly less than half the screen size is allowed for our email message. So this can be very frustrating for Windows users because then to see your whole message, you have to scroll horizontally back and forth to get everything in. on the inbox view. Now when we click into this, and we get a pop-up window, and here everything fits pretty well. We scroll down. We see that the far right side of our email just bumps up against that window, but it doesn't produce a horizontal scroll, so it fits okay. But when we're up here in the inbox view, everything is chopped off on the right side of the screen. So they made these menus extra large so that you can tap them with your finger. So, and that's why you really can't go much larger than 650 pixels wide, or to play it extra safe, stick with a 600 pixel width for your page size. Because on some Windows machines, they're going to get this kind of user experience. So laptops are designed as sort of a hybrid between a mobile device and a desktop device. If we were on a desktop computer, we could maximize this window and we would see more of the email message here. But we're on a laptop like this, we get this truncated view of email messages displayed in the inbox view like this. And this is very frustrating for Windows users. So is there anything you can do about this? There is a trick in HTML email known as ghost tables. What are ghost tables? Well, I'm going to show you one in just a second. The trick, though, with ghost tables is that if you have large images like this, you also need to make ghost images. Okay, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. This email is an actual email that went out in Marketing Cloud, but it was developed in a special application that was spun up to create the HTML for this. And it was done as a paste HTML email and sent out in Marketing Cloud. So this is responsive. Everything works pretty nice. We have a great big image up here. We have very large teaser images here. Okay, so how are they doing this? Here's the code that they're using that was spun up by a custom application. We see they're using web fonts that are pointing to their static server. Kudos for that. Very nice job. Very nice, neat, and clean. They have some really large breakpoints here, 1024. That's pretty big for an email. 768, pretty big. We see that they're using the BEM file naming convention. Very cool. Kudos for that. Very nice, clean, neat CSS. Very nice. Here's our conditional comment styles for Outlook. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so now here we are, the main content table. Instead of having a width of, some number of pixels, it's set to a width of 100%. If we scroll over here, we see that it uses a max width property of 1440 pixels. So this email is displaying at 1440 pixels wide. The main content table is then wrapped in an additional table called the ghost table. This table has a fixed width of 600 pixels. And it's wrapped in conditional comments for Outlook only. So when Outlook sees this, it uses this table to wrap the other table in a fixed width of 600 pixels. Okay, that's how the ghost table works. The images, however, need to be handled separately. Let's scroll down and let's look for that big image that they have. Here it is. We see that the image is stated twice. Here, if not Outlook, they're using the if not MSO conditional comment. it's set to width of 100%, max width of 100%. If it is Outlook, the image is set to a width of 600 pixels. The image file that this points to is the same image file, but it's being set up two different ways. One way is for the extra large display. The other way is for the more narrow display that Outlook needs. So this kind of thing is not supported at all in Marketing Cloud. You can't use the Marketing Cloud image blocks to produce this kind of markup. The only way to get this kind of markup is with a custom application or with copy and paste templates that you might have on your computer, or with some kind of script solution that you may have spun up on your computer. So this has to be done manually or with a custom application. You can't do this in Marketing Cloud. You can add a ghost table to your Marketing Cloud table. You can do this, but you can't handle images this way in Marketing Cloud. So I really don't recommend going this way because you lose the ability to edit images in Marketing Cloud this way, and you make your whole workflow a little more cumbersome. And I just don't recommend doing things this way. You can if you really want to. They actually, in this case, made a custom application to generate this HTML, and they're doing a copy-paste HTML email in Marketing Cloud. You can do that. It works, but it's very cumbersome. Okay, I want to show you an interesting bug that I found in Outlook. There are so many bugs, it's hard to keep track. This one caught me off guard. Here is a design comp for an email template that I worked on recently. And it has some content blocks surrounded with a thick green border going around them. Okay, so there are actually two different ways that you could do this in Marketing Cloud. Let me show you. I have those two blocks here, and I have them again down here. These are both done two different ways. Let's look at the first way. The first way, I have a green background color set on the content region. So this first way needs its own content region or content area to hold these blocks. So this way is a little less flexible, but it does work. We have a background color. We have no padding on the left and right. Have a little bit on the top and bottom. And then when you click into the layout blocks and look at our block settings, we see here there is a margin space of 40 and a padding space of 30. So the margin space of 40 on either side lets that green background color show through. And then the padding space of 30 is set to white, which is right here. So there's a white surround for the content, and then a green surround for the whole layout block. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Let's scroll down here. This is done a different way. Here, there are no special styles set on the content region. There's no background color or anything like that going on here. If we look at the layout block, we see that here I'm using a thick border. The border is 40 pixels on the left and right, and it's in that green background color. There's no margin space set over here. Instead, there's just the padding space for that white background color, for that white surround that's inside. Okay, so this second way is more flexible because the green borders stay with the layout blocks. So these layout blocks can be moved up and down on the page, and they won't affect other content blocks that are against the white page background color. So this way is nice. This way is a little more complicated and a little more restrictive because it needs its own content area. Okay, so I ran a test, and this is what I found in Outlook. The top method looks fine. What happened here to the bottom method? Outlook has this odd behavior where it limits how thick you can make borders. And I have found that the limit is about 9 pixels. So one of the things that Outlook does, one of the changes that it makes to your email, is it takes all of your pixel units for anything that's sized in pixels, including your font sizes and so on, and it converts those to point sizes. Sometimes the conversion can cause slight differences in the type size and the spacing between things, but in particular for borders, it hits a 9 pixel limit on borders. And so you see it's actually chopped off the border. In chopping off the border, it left the content extra space to move around in. So everything's pushed over a little bit, and now the photo and the text won't line up quite the same against other content that is above and below these layout blocks. And so this is a very peculiar bug that's in Outlook. It can happen with borders that are just on one side, or on the top and the bottom, or it can happen with borders that go all the way around, as in this case. So for this particular email project, I went with this method instead, using a background color on its own special region. This isn't as flexible as I said before, but it was the only way to get the look that was required in the design comp. And that's a peculiar limitation in Outlook. When you're here in Marketing Cloud, it's misleading because you can set borders to any width you want in any background color. And there's no alert message that pops up when you set a large border. Whoops, hold on, wait a minute. You can't use that thick border for Outlook. There's no little alert system built in here. You simply go ahead and use a thick border and then wait to see the results in Outlook. So I just wanted to point this out to you. If you ever have the need to have thick borders in an email message, you should use a thick background color in a region instead of borders. Inline styles. What are inlined styles? I went back to an earlier version of this template. I stripped out the web fonts and I stripped out the styling that was here. So let's just start with this. Without making an H2 tag on the welcome text that's here, what Marketing Cloud gives you is just plain text. There are no tags wrapping around the text. The paragraphs are marked off by BR tags. So where there is a paragraph here and a paragraph here, there are simply 2 BR tags. That's it. That's how Marketing Cloud does things by default. If we go back here, we can set this to an H2. Marketing Cloud then adds inlined styles on the H2 tag, which we can see here. So these are the styles that are picked up in the design settings. So when we set up our H2 styles, and we set those here. Those get picked up in Marketing Cloud and applied when you use these drop-down selectors here. The font styling, however, really only adds span tags if you want to override a particular font style that you have set up in your base font styles in the design settings. And we haven't done that here. So where this gets picked up in the template, and we went over this before, here on the body tag, there are base font styles, and we set Verdana, line height 150, font size 16 pixels. So we set that here, and it also gets set up again here on this table. Now, some email template systems will apply these basic font styles to every table that holds content. But in Marketing Cloud, by default, it only adds these styles to the main content table and the body tag, and that's it. When you go into edit content, there are no styles that are added here. Okay, but you can add your own inline styles. Before we do that, let me just show you what happens if we add a font style here. Let's say we wanted to make this Comic Sans. Okay, let's see what it did. It added a span tag here, Comic Sans. We didn't change the font size, so it's still 16 pixels. If we go back here, let's change the font size. Let's make it 18 pixels. If we look here, it adds two span tags now. One makes it 18 pixels, and one makes it Comic Sans. And this is the only control that it gives you. Let me just make these default and make this default. The other thing that happens is with two BR tags separating the two paragraphs, you have a default amount of space here of a double line break. That's all it gives you. Another thing you can do with the text editor here is if you hold down the Shift key and hit return, it will give you a paragraph tag instead of two BR tags. So the new text that you enter will have paragraph tags. So it gave us one paragraph tag up here and one paragraph tag down here. Let me just remove this and remove this for a moment and go back here. Let me do that again. I'm going to hold down Shift and return. And now you see how we have less space between the paragraphs? That's because now Marketing Cloud is giving us these paragraph tags. But if you don't hold down the Shift key, you get the two BR tags by default. And you still don't get inlined styles on the text. The text is still only picking up the styles that are set in the code view here on the body tag and on this main content table here. That's the only place where it's getting these styles. Now, if for some reason an email gets passed around, forwarded to a friend or a colleague, these can become detached, and it's possible that you will get default font styling such as Times New Roman, which isn't great. If we save this content block, let me save this into my blocks folder. We save that. Let me jump back out. And let's just take a look at that block. So Content Builder opens that block, and because it's detached from the template, it doesn't pick up any styles for the body type at all. It only picks up the styles that have been inlined on that H2 tag, the heading tag. So no styles here. So this just looks like plain times text. And this is what can happen with email messages when they get forwarded. They can revert to plain times. So what do you do about this? You inline your styles. And Marketing Cloud doesn't do that for you. That's something that you have to do manually by yourself. Most commercial emails that go out will inline their styles, or they will at least have font styles set on all of the tables that are used to hold content blocks in their template. But Marketing Cloud doesn't do this. So let me go back out. Let me show you an example of a complex layout. This image looks real big right now because nothing is constraining it. If we edit it, it will be constrained here. So here is a layout that is used on a template that we have. And by default, this just has a span tag for color, where it says the Great Hall, and another span tag for font styles. So I simply did this using these font styles here, and the size, and the color I set over here. The H2 tag picks up the styling that's set in the template styles in the template, but you don't get those same styles here if you're just editing a block in this manner here. Over here we see I also added inline styles here. By default we wouldn't get these at all. All we would get is this. And so it would look like plain times, which is what we saw in that example block that we saved earlier. So, but what we want is a very robust email that goes out that will allow content blocks to become detached from the template and still look decent. So what we did for this email was we inlined all of the styles. And here's that same block with inline styles. And here, where it says the Great Hall, that has a paragraph tag. It has the full font style here for our default fallback font, Verdana. Font size 13 pixels, the weight, the line height, the color. We're setting it to transform, text transform uppercase, so it gives us the uppercase text. And the H2 heading tag gets its full styling here. Over here, we also have styling. We have a paragraph tag for this text. We have, again, the font family is set here, font size, line height. Everything is set manually on this paragraph tag, and that gives us full control over the text that appears over here in this block. So even if this email gets forwarded to a friend or colleague, and they open it in, let's say, Outlook, for instance, and let's say, for instance, it may have been forwarded from Apple Mail. Apple Mail will possibly lose the styling that Outlook needs, but if we inline the styles, the recipient getting the email in Outlook will still see basic styling in this particular layout block, even though certain things have become detached from the template. So this is a much more bulletproof way of saving your content blocks, inlining styles. It does take a fair amount of work to do, and then when you're updating templates or updating your email messages, I should say, you need to be careful not to overwrite the styles that have been set previously on these inline styles. So the content editor has to be careful not to overwrite these inline styles. But this is a much more robust way. It is more work intensive, but this is the way that you need to do it for emails that need to have a high degree of resiliency that go out, so that no matter what email client it may get opened in, it gets some base level font styles and all of the type that's in your email.